Please join me in reading Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the path of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me for all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. O beloved, you are my shepherd, I shall not want. You bring me to green pastures for rest and lead me beside the still waters, renewing my spirit. You restore my soul. You lead me in the paths of goodness to follow love's way. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow and of death, I am not afraid, for you are ever with me. Your rod and your staff, they guide me. They give me strength and comfort. You prepare a table before me in the presence of all my fears. You bless me with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the heart of the beloved forever. The word of God for the people of God.
Thanks be to God.
As Liam just taught us, the fourth Sunday of Easter is referred to as Good Shepherd Sunday, and Psalm 23 is always the appointed psalm. For many of us, the 23rd Psalm is wonderfully and achingly familiar. Perhaps you can recite it from memory, or you could close your eyes as you hear it read aloud and know exactly what's coming next. Psalm 23 is often read in hospitals, nursing homes, at funerals and memorial services, and countless composers have set it to music. Even people who are unchurched or non-religious have probably encountered the 23rd Psalm at some point, and they're familiar with the metaphor of God as shepherd. There are many, many versions of it, and I chose the King James Version and a poetic paraphrase by Nan Merrill for our service this morning, to give you just a sense of how this psalm has been and continues to be reworked and reworded. One hazard of being so familiar with Psalm 23 or any piece of scripture is that we stop engaging with it. Like, oh, I've heard it. I've read it so many times. There's nothing new about it. Well, let me tell you. 3 weeks ago, I gathered with my ecumenical clergy Bible study circle called 40 Orchards, and we engaged with Psalm 23 for 3 hours. 3 hours! Something old became something new again. Here are 3 understandings that I received as gift that morning in our study circle. The first word of Psalm 23 is the. I trust we're all good with the. The second word is Lord. I trust that we are not all good with Lord. It is gendered, it is hierarchical, it's anachronistic. It could also be translated as God, or Yahweh, or Adonai, and it could be shifted to the feminine entirely, as musician Bobby McFerrin does in his setting that uses the pronoun she throughout his whole song. She makes me lie down in green pastures. She restores my soul. Stephanie Spencer is one of the leaders of our clergy Bible study group, and she is highly educated in the Hebrew language, and she has a passion for the Bible. So she took us on a deep dive that morning, starting with the presupposition that any particular name we use for God is incomplete, inadequate, insufficient. In order to more fully appreciate Psalm 23, Stephanie took us all the way back to Moses and Exodus chapter 3. Why did she do that? Because it is the first time in the Bible that anyone asks God about God's name. Moses at the burning bush says, "If I come to the Israelites and say to them, 'The God of your ancestors has sent me to you,' and they ask me, 'What is God's name?' what shall I say to them?" And God famously responds, "I am who I am." Now, is that a really lousy answer? Like ridiculous? Or is it God's way of saying, "I am bigger than any name. I am so enormous, so vast. I am unnameable"? Or is it an evasive answer because God does not need to explain God's self? Or is it better than nothing? Like better than no answer at all, so we should be grateful? I learned that "I am who I am" is a translation of the Hebrew verb to be in the imperfect verb tense. This understanding of Hebrew grammar is a golden key to unlocking some of the mystery. Now, an imperfect verb signifies past, present, and future. So, "I am who I am" started sometime before this moment. It is of this moment, and it will continue beyond this moment. I am who I am, was, and is, and will be. That's what Yahweh means. So instead of God, a noun, perhaps we could reimagine the divine as godding, a verb. You know, adapting, responding, listening, challenging, teaching, demanding, healing, breathing, being. And then I thought, I need to ask this question. So I said, what about the word that got translated into English as who? I am who I am. Stephanie told us it's a translation of the Hebrew word asher, which means who. But get this, asher can also mean what, that, when, where, how, and because. I am what I am. I am that I am. I am where I am. I am when I am. I am how I am. I am because I am. All of those are names for God, for Godding. It's transcendence and immanence all at the same time. Now, after about 45 minutes of being down that particular rabbit hole of trying to understand how God named God's self in Exodus 13 and what this means for how we experience the divine, my study group decided, at least for that morning, to use this name for God. You ready? Living presence. Living presence. So Psalm 23 could begin, "The living presence is my shepherd. I shall not want." I offer that to you this morning as a new point of entry for the 23rd Psalm. Okay, I'm already on page 6 of this sermon, and I've only touched on the first 2 words of the psalm. So I am going to skip verses 2 and 3, much to my chagrin because there's so much going on, but I'm going to move on to verse 4. Listen again to verse 4a, the first part of the 4th verse. "Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil." We get valley plus shadow plus death. Those green pastures and still waters, they're gone. Now you're in the valley of the shadow of death, and the shepherd, the living presence, is with you there too. Now, if you're a sheep in the valley, Just think about it. You're vulnerable. Predators are likely to be up on the hillside, not down in the valley, so they got a good look at you. Their next meal, their next potential prey. And a valley, too, has limited sunlight, so it's a shadowy place. Danger lurks, and the only way out is to go through. This, friends, is a universal truth of the human condition. We will likely find ourselves in the valley of the shadow of death multiple times in our life. And you know, every fairy tale, every hero's quest involves going through some kind of danger, some kind of challenge, disorientation, ordeal, or threat in order to reach a destination and be changed because of the journey. You go through childhood and adolescence. You go through leaving home. You might go through a divorce. You go through a health crisis. You go through letting go of a script for your life that did not come to fruition. You go through the death of your parents. You go through job loss or retirement or getting trained for a second career. And yes, all of us, each one of us, will go through the process of dying and death. The only way out is to go through. And the 23rd Psalm names this universal truth. Note that, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, is not a sentence. It's a clause. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, well, then what? What's the rest of that sentence? Answer, I will fear no evil. And this brings me to the biggest aha moment I had that morning in our study circle. I will fear no evil. How is that even possible? Aren't we wired to fear evil? Shouldn't we fear evil in its many shapes and forms? How can the Psalm suggest that we do not fear that which is evil in its many terrifying, beguiling forms? Well, back to the Hebrew. There are two Hebrew words that are translated into English as fear. There's Yah-Re, which means dread or terror. And there's Yeh-Ra, which means reverence or awe. Yah-Re, which means dread or terror, and Yeh-Ra, which means reverence or awe. So let me pause here and ask, how many of you have been to the Grand Canyon? Yes. Chances are good that you felt the enormity of the canyon in both meanings of the word fear. You felt reverence and awe, and you probably felt a little scared and the dread. There is tremendous danger at the Grand Canyon, and there is tremendous awe. The same is true for any large body of water. Think of Lake Superior, or the Atlantic Ocean, or the Mediterranean Sea. We feel reverence for its beauty, as well as fear for its dangerous power. So the same is true for the word fear in the Bible. Remember the sentence from the book of Proverbs, chapter 10, verse 9, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom." The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. So applying what we've learned about the Hebrew word for fear, this sentence could be heard as the reverence of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. So at this moment in Psalm 23, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. I invite you to experience it anew as, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will reverence no evil. I will not be in awe of evil. I will not revere evil. Now that is a declaration of faith. That is a way of life. That is a daily spiritual practice. I will not revere evil. And with that, the psalmist's attention goes back to God, the living presence, declaring, Thou art with me. Thy rod, thy staff, they comfort me. So we've experienced the green pastures, the still waters, the path, and the valley, and the living presence has been with us the whole time. It is then that we get to the table that the living presence has set for us. The table, prepared before me in the presence of my enemies, is perhaps the most vexing part of this psalm, and I'm sorry to say it will have to wait for another day. It is fascinating, but to unpack what it means requires its own separate sermon. Another time. The psalm then concludes with abundance, being anointed with oil, having my cup overflow. Remember, the second sentence of the psalm is, I shall not want. It's also been translated as, I have all I need, or I lack nothing, or I shall not want, not today and not ever. So friends, we've come full circle by the end of the psalm. I have all I need, my cup runneth over. Finally, one more Hebrew translation. The Hebrew word hesed has so many shadings and nuances of meaning. In the 23rd Psalm, it's translated as goodness and mercy. It can also mean loyalty, compassion, selfless love, or pouring out oneself for another's benefit, committed, faithful love. All of that hesed, will follow us all the days of our life. The Lord, the shepherd, the living presence, Yahweh Adonai, guiding, I am who I am. This unnameable creator of the universe leads us at the beginning of the psalm and follows us out at the end. And that, dear church, is the good news on Good Shepherd Sunday. Our unnameable God surrounds us, leads us, follows us, pursues us, hems us in with a love that will not let us go. The living presence is indeed the Alpha and Omega, the beginning of all things and their end. My cup, your cup, our cup overflows.